Last quarter, at one Series B startup, a senior engineer merged a pull request titled, "Removing 23,000 lines." 8 microservices collapsed into one, 4 message queues, gone, 3 databases, consolidated. The quarter that followed, fewer incidents, lower latency, on-call pages down sharply. The codebase got smaller. The company got faster. Nobody wrote a blog post about it. This is the part of 2026 the tooling industry doesn't want you to see. Something quiet is happening underneath the AI headlines. Senior engineers have stopped bragging about their stacks. The conference talks getting shared aren't about distributed sagas and service meshes anymore. They're about deleting services, collapsing databases, replacing orchestration platforms with a cron job and 80 lines of bash. The hype direction reversed. Nobody announced it. Complexity fatigue is the most cited pain point in senior engineering surveys. And the people writing the postmortems aren't juniors. They're principal engineers who spent the last 5 years building the systems they're now ripping out. Everything that follows is already running in production somewhere. Real companies. Real traffic. Most of them will never write a blog post about it. The question that keeps surfacing is this. If the answer was always this simple, what was everyone building toward? Shopify runs most of its checkout path on a Rails monolith. Basecamp ripped out its cloud footprint and went back to its own servers. Stack Overflow's published architecture, through the late 2010s, served billions of monthly page views from a small fleet of on-premise web servers running a .NET monolith, and that monolith, adjusted but intact, is still in production. These aren't hobby projects. These are companies operating at scale that most distributed by default startups will never reach. The microservices era sold us a promise. Split the code, scale the teams, ship faster. What actually happened was this. You traded function calls for network calls. You traded stack traces for distributed traces you can't read. You traded a git merge conflict for a cross-team coordination meeting about schema versioning. The coupling didn't disappear. It migrated from the code, where the compiler could see it, into the network, where only production could see it. The experienced teams collapsing these systems in 2026 aren't anti-microservices, they're anti-premature microservices. They've learned that most teams split their services before they had the operational maturity to run one service well. The result was 7 half-broken services instead of one working one. Default to monolith, earn the right to split. SQLite now has a write-ahead log mode that handles concurrent readers without blocking. It has a companion replication layer, LightStream, that streams the database to object storage continuously. The entire engine is a single file. The entire file fits in memory on a modern server. For read-heavy workloads under a single writer pattern, SQLite competes with, and often beats, the Postgres cluster you're paying 6 figures a year to run. Levels.fyi is publicly on record running SQLite for parts of its production stack. Tailscale runs operational state on SQLite at real scale. For a read-heavy workload measured in tens of thousands of requests per minute, the cost difference looks like this. Here's the thing principal engineers noticed. The reason teams reached for a client-server database by default wasn't performance. It was a mental model inherited from a decade ago when disks were slow, RAM was scarce, and the network felt free. None of that is still true. The machine you're reading this on has more RAM than most production servers had in 2015. Calling SQLite a toy stopped being honest somewhere around 2020. It's the most deployed database engine on Earth. Every phone, every browser, every car. Production capability was never in dispute. Capacity in your specific traffic pattern was. Most teams bought a database designed for a workload they would never reach. There's a story underneath the benchmarks about what SQLite means, not what it scores at, and it deserves its own video. For now, the operational principle that matters, SQLite belongs in production wherever your write pattern allows it. Airflow, prefect, Dagster, temporal, step functions. An entire industry grew up to schedule tasks. Most of these tasks are a bash script and a timestamp. Here's the pattern. A team needs to run a nightly job. Someone suggests Cron. Someone else says Cron doesn't scale. The team adopts Airflow. They spend 4 weeks learning operators and executors and XComs. They set up a metadata database. They set up a scheduler. They set up a worker pool. They set up monitoring for the orchestration platform that was supposed to monitor their jobs. 6 months in, the nightly job runs on Cron inside a Kubernetes pod because the Airflow install kept breaking. At this team scale, the orchestration platform was always going to lose to the cron job it replaced. This pattern isn't getting better in 2026. It's getting faster. Ask any modern AI assistant to write a pipeline and watch it suggest a framework before it writes a function. The recommendation arrives before the problem is even understood. The question to ask before reaching for an orchestration framework: do you actually have a DAG? Or do you have 3 cron jobs that an experienced engineer could draw on a napkin? If it's the napkin case, you don't need orchestration. You need a function, a schedule, and a log file you can tail. The function is the unit of trust. The framework is the unit of overhead. 3 examples in. 2 more to go. The through line isn't minimalism, it's earned restraint. This isn't a critique aimed outward. Every one of these 5 anti-patterns has shipped repeatedly at companies run by engineers who knew better. Not juniors trying to look impressive, but senior engineers who picked the complex option because it felt more serious than the simple one. The lesson, by every account, doesn't land until it's been paid for. The through line is understanding. Experienced teams pick simple options because they understand what complexity costs. Junior engineers pick complex options because complexity looks like rigor, and rigor looks like seniority. It's a mirror of the Dunning-Kruger shape. The people most likely to reach for a service mesh are the people who have never operated one through an outage at 3 a.m. There are systems where complexity is earned. Stripe, Google, Netflix. The canonical examples of earned complexity got there because the business required it, the scale required it, or the operational maturity to run it already existed. Borrowed complexity is the actual mistake, reaching for the tools of companies whose problems you don't have because their blog posts made you feel like you might. The modern ORM is one of the most successful abstractions in software history. It's also one of the most expensive, not in CPU, in comprehension. You don't need a war story for this one. The benchmark tells it. The senior engineer move in 2026 treats the ORM as a convenience layer for CRUD, dropping to raw SQL the moment the query matters. The database is the most mature piece of software in your stack. It has a query planner that has been refined over 30 years. Your ORM is hiding it from you. The most underrated career skill in 2026 is the ability to delete code that other people wrote. Every code base has rot. Features that launched and never got traction. A/B tests that finished 2 years ago and left the branching logic in place. Abstractions built for a second use case that never arrived. Integrations with services the company no longer uses. Flags that have been on for 6 quarters and aren't flags anymore, just dead conditionals. The reason this rot survives is simple. Adding code feels like progress. Deleting code feels like risk. Performance reviews reward the first, nothing rewards the second. So the rot compounds, quarter by quarter, until a company reaches the point where the people doing the rip-out open the pull request. We started this video with 23,000 lines, gone, and the team exhales. The senior engineer's real job is curating the surface area of the system, not adding to it. Everything that's in the repo costs something to keep. Attention, test time, build time, cognitive load during onboarding, bug surface. A line of code is a liability priced in perpetuity. The engineers cleaning these up run a balance sheet in their head. The question they ask, constantly, is not what should we build? It's what shouldn't be in here anymore. There are 3 words that should make any experienced engineer nervous in a design review: future-proof, scalable, extensible. They are promissory notes, written against engineering time you don't yet have. Every line of code is a liability. Every service is an on-call rotation. Every abstraction is a layer of indirection that the next engineer, or you, in 6 months, will have to decode. Optionality sounds free. It isn't. Optionality is bug surface area waiting to be found by a customer at a bad time. The 2026 shift is economic, not philosophical. Engineering time is the most expensive resource a company has, and every piece of infrastructure you adopt is a standing cost paid in that currency. The teams that understand this are shipping faster than the teams that don't. Not because they're smarter, because they're carrying less. The question that separates senior engineers from the rest isn't what's the right architecture. It's what's the smallest version of this that could work, and how would I know if it stopped working? The SQLite story has one more piece, not the benchmarks, not the architecture. There's a reason experienced engineers keep going back to it that has nothing to do with performance, and most people who write about SQLite never say it out loud. That video is next. It opens with a question most people refuse to ask. The best code you'll write this year is code that isn't there.